What's up, ladies and gentlemen? It's Docken. We're here with another video. What we're going to talk about today is warrior tanking, TBC, some of the basics. This is going to be the first in a series. What I'd like to do is just lay out foundation and then go through several of the steps, including, rotation, threat generation, interface setup, macros, all the types of things you're going to need to do to be a successful warrior tank in the Burning Crusade. It's something that I feel like a lot of people potentially could struggle with. It's been a bit of adaptation for me, coming from Classic, where you have Fury Warrior tanking, and now you're looking at like a full prot build, and it changes a lot of the way the game plays. So basically, one of the things I'd like to tell people to do is, or suggest that you do, is that you got to do something with your interface. Using the base interface as a warrior tank is clunky, archaic, and not a fan of it at all. What I would definitely recommend you do is, and I'll put some links to these down below, is to get yourself the CurseForge app and or use their website. Now, I've got a lot of different things installed right now, but the primary one we're going to look at right here is Dominos. Dominos is a replacement for the in-game action bars, and you can see I've got a couple of them set up across the bottom and one over here on the side. And the reason I think this is important is because as a warrior, when you switch stances in the user interface that Blizzard provides, you have your bars rotating. So, if you see down here, I'm switching battle stance, defensive stance, berserker stance, and it changes none of my bars, where you always had that first bar rotation in the base interface. So having this makes it much cleaner. There's a lot less to worry about visually on the bottom of the screen, in my opinion. The other thing that this add-on does that's amazing is, I'm going to pull it up here, is it will allow you to keybind in a very, very easy way. So if you just type /Dominos or bring up your add-on interface section of your section of your interface, you're going to have your keybind section, right? So hover over a button, press key to bind that key. So if you look at this here, very, very simple. Press escape to clear all bindings. So all you have to do is go through and mouse over the button, press 1, it binds that button. Same thing, press 2, so on and so forth, to whatever keybind you like. It's very, very simple, easy to do, and it saves you a lot of time. The other thing that if you don't already have as an MMO player, I would highly, highly, highly recommend is getting an MMO mouse. You see you've got extra buttons on the side here that can be bound to whatever key combinations you would like, and you can also use those to keybind things. So if you see here, I have Control 1, which is not something that's super conducive to pushing, but I have that bound on my mouse so I can hit that while I'm doing various other things on my my keypad or my keyboard. So those are a few things that I find are really important, but why it's important, again, and I was saying that you have action bars rotating on your first action bar when you switch stances, is because the very next thing I think you should do is to go over and set up macros. Now I have a lot of macros here. It may look like a lot to some people, may not look like that much to others, but there's a very simple pattern that you're going to use for setting up tanking macros. You can see I have some of these left over here from TBC, or excuse me, from Classic into TBC. Start attack, bloodthirst, those kind of things. This is part of an add-on. But what you want to do is you want to set up your keys to do something like this, or your keybinds to do something like this. You have show tooltip shield bash, so it's going to show the tooltip for the ability in the macro, and then you want to do cast defensive stance, and then you're going to have cast shield bash. The reason you do this is because what it'll do is whenever you want to utilize any given skill, it will default you to the stance that is required for that skill. So another example would be, as you can see here, I have intercept bound to Shift Q. So if I press Shift Q, it automatically takes me into defensive and puts me into berserker stance. And the way that macro is written, show tooltip for intercept, cast berserker stance, cast intercept. And what that allows me to do is to have all of my keys bound to whatever I would like them to be, and it will automatically put me in the stance that I want for utilizing that ability. One of the great things about this is that in TBC, you automatically retain a minimum of 10 rage when you switch stances as a warrior. So you don't have to worry about having 0 rage to use the abilities, where in Classic, you would have you'd have to have tactical mastery to retain any of your rage when you switch stances, which used to be in the arms tree. So the fact that that's no longer a requirement, and instead tactical mastery will just enhance the amount of rage you retain when you switch stances, that's something that you don't have to have. 10 seems to work out well for me, particularly 5-man, things like that. You don't need to shift with a ton of rage in there, and it's not like you're using it every single combat session. So again, I'm just going to cover over a few of these things that I have set up, like charge, start attack. We're going to have your show tooltip, start attack, cast battle stance, cast charge, and that's going to automatically start swinging my weapon, charge in, and it's going to have me in the right stance when I do so. So you can go through all your abilities and write them out like this. So show tooltip, disarm, defensive stance, cast disarm, hamstring. You have the intercept, like I said, for berserker stance and intercept. You have mocking blow for battle stance, and you can do all these things. I also have taunt here, which is great. Setting taunt up to work for defensive stance, you're automatically taking less damage when you hit that, puts you right where you want to be. Previously in Classic, I had a lot of macros like this to equip slot 17, which is your offhand, which will equip slot 17, name of the item, and then cast shield block, because a lot of times in the Fury build you're going to be dual wielding, and in order to save yourself if you spike really hard on incoming damage, back in Classic you would have to throw on a shield. So you can even set things up like this if you're wanting to if you're a DPS warrior and you want to have something where, hey man, if I need to taunt a mob and pick it up, that's a great little tidbit you can do, is set up a macro to equip a shield slot on slot 17, equip whatever shield you have, and then you can even work in taunt, something like that. So you'll taunt, you'll put your shield on taunt, and then you'll be more durable when that happens. The reason I feel like these are really important to have, and I also highly recommend getting a bars interface, something that shows your character, your target of target. You can use the base interface. Those are movable by right clicking and making them movable. You can slide them down here. I don't like them. I think there's a little lack of clarity, particularly target to target, and I feel like target to target when you're tanking is exponentially important, because if you're targeting something and you need to see, is it targeting a healer or is it targeting a DPS, then that tells you the priority order in which you need to try and regain aggro on that target should you lose it. Just a few tidbits to get set up. So find yourself a good bar add-on. I recommend Dominos. I'll put a link to that down below, or you can check on CurseForge and just search Dominos. And I think that's a fantastic one. I use Luna Frames. It's one I've used all the way through Classic. I really like the way it looks, and I'm somewhat used to its functionality. It doesn't have to be that, but I do think that having a bar add-on is great. Having a frames add-on is great, and those are two of the big things you need to do. Plus, you're going to want to set up all of the macros I just suggested or talked about there, and you'll find that the more you use them, you may want to make others. You may want to make one that you say you don't particularly find hamstring useful to you often, and all of a sudden you're like, man, I really wish I could have used hamstring. You can go back in, set that up, but I would recommend setting them for all the abilities you would potentially use, and making sure you're binding them, because keybinds are something that I struggled with for a while, where I was like, oh man, I could click this fast enough. Playing on private servers years back, I'm thinking I'm in Nax there using an archaic build, clicking abilities like a complete noob. And after being harped on by some of my friends, I went back through and I was like, okay, I'm going to set up keybinds and I'm going to redo my whole interface. And I could not believe the difference in speed and the quality of play that I could put out when I switched and started using those binds. And what I did was I set it all up and I bound a few abilities, bind 3-4 things, get used to using those, and go back and, okay, I want to bind this ability, bind a 5th thing, and just keep adding to it and adding to it and adding to it until you have everything set up and you feel comfortable using it. It's huge. It's more than you can imagine. Just trust me. We're going to make more videos for this series. We're going to cover a lot of different topics, so make sure you guys subscribe. And if you want to talk about this directly, you can go over to my Twitch, Docken_TV. I'm live about 5-6 days a week, generally from 3 in the afternoon till 11ish at night, EST time. So feel free to come over, give us a follow, talk to us. If you got additional questions about anything we talked about here today, feel free to just bring that up in chat. Don't hesitate. I can't wait to see you there. And best of luck out there tanking as a warrior.